Well, hello everyone! Happy Valentine's Day! My name's Miss Jessica here with Fibo Kids Art Academy, and I'm so excited to teach our class. Now, in honor of Valentine's Day, we're going to have a fun, heart-filled project with a lot of cool materials. So let's go take a look at what we're going to do. Now, for today's project, we are going to be making hearts with lots of different colors. I'm going to choose some rainbow colors, but you guys can have fun with that too. As you see here, we have one big heart in the middle and a couple little hearts on the side. All of these are made with acrylic paint. Now today, if you don't have acrylic paint, that's totally fine. You can really use any materials you do have, but I do recommend chalk pastels. So for those of you, again, who don't have acrylic, but you do have chalk, the dusty ones, those will work the best. But if you don't, it's okay. Just choose what you do have. Now we're going to be drawing a big heart, and you can tell it looks 3D, but it's actually just painted onto the paper. Then I have all these other little hearts and even some jewels around, so we can have fun and decorate with a whole bunch of different materials. Let's go ahead and review some of those right now. So we're going to need some paper, thick paper like Bristol paper, or even a canvas to paint on. We're going to use acrylic paint. I'm actually only going to use primary colors, blue, red, and yellow, with a lot of white. If you don't have these colors and maybe you're out of white, that's totally fine. Grab what you do have and what you'd like to use. Valentine's Day can be any kind of colors you want, not just a rainbow or pink or red. I'm going to need scissors and glue to cut out my little extra details and some sort of sparkly jewels. If you don't have something sparkly, you don't have to use it. You can also draw it onto the picture. Now, since I'm painting, I'm going to need brushes, and we're going to need lots of different sizes, a big, medium, and small. Big brushes are good for the background, and the small and medium are good for the tiny details on our hearts. Then always have a pencil, Sharpie, and eraser next to you, and then especially if you're painting today like me, you're going to need some water. Now, this water is to clean our brushes, so make sure you also have towels nearby so that you can dry the brushes off. Super important. All right, well, we went over our materials, and now I can go ahead and get started to draw. So I want you guys just to clear everything out of the way, keep your pencil and Sharpie and eraser nearby. Throughout the class, as we're working, I'll start to tell you about the different materials to color with too. So if you don't have paint, it's okay. I'll help you out. All right, now we're gonna grab our piece of paper we're going to use today. I'm gonna use this nice big piece of paper. We're going to begin with just our final draw. No practice today because we're only going to be making a big heart and painting it. So let's grab our pencils. I'm going to use my Sharpie today, but please always make sure you have your pencil first. Now in the middle, we're going to add our big heart. It's up to you how big you want it to be. It can take up the whole paper. Maybe it's going to be a little smaller so you can add more in the background. I'm going to make mine right about the middle. So let's watch first, and then you can go ahead and draw the heart. So I'm just going to start with one side. Hearts can always be a little tricky to draw, so again, try your best. And the other. So go ahead with your pencil, draw your heart as big as you need to. I recommend not making it teeny tiny because it's going to be really hard to paint as well. All right, when you're done with your heart, take a Sharpie and trace it, just like I did. The reason why is when we paint over it, you'll see your Sharpie through. If you want to leave it pencil, you're more than welcome to do that as well. All right, we're going to leave this for a second, and we're actually going to grab a second piece of paper. This paper is going to be for those smaller hearts, like those little candy hearts we saw in the background. So I'm going to switch. Now on our paper, we're going to add these little details. Let me bring this back out. We have 4 smaller candy hearts. You don't have to make these candy hearts today. Maybe instead other things that remind you of Valentine's Day, like flowers or just regular hearts. So again, you don't have to worry if you don't want to add candy hearts, but I'm going to draw those today with you. We want to make them kind of small because they need to fit somewhere in the background, and we're only going to make 4. All right, let's jump back here. Using your pencil again, please make sure no Sharpie yet. We're going to add 4 hearts to our new paper. I'm going to start just up in the top corner, and I'm going to begin. So go ahead if you're drawing something different, or if you want to add hearts as well. I'm going to try to make them all about the same size, so that way I know they'll fit. If you want to make some a little smaller, you can. Now, candy hearts are a little different than regular hearts, so you might notice the top here is a little bit more rounded. But again, maybe you just want to draw some regular hearts on there. All right, my top two are a little bigger, my bottom are a little smaller, and that's good, just in case I run out of room. Now for a candy heart, it's 3D, which means it's thicker, so you can eat it. Now I'm going to show that in the paper. If you don't want to draw it, you don't have to. I'm going to start with my top two, and I'm going to have part of it peeking through on the right side. So I'm going to start towards the top of the heart and curve it down on the top and at the bottom where the point is, kind of coming out, and then we're going to just connect it together. And if you look at it, it looks 3D, so that way you can paint a little darker there. I'm going to go ahead and do that one more time on my second heart, top and bottom, and connect together. Try to curve it the same way your heart is drawn. That's going to be really important. Now, just to make them look a little different, for my bottom two, I'm going to have the shading be on the other side. So now I'm going to go to the left side, and I'm going to draw my two lines, top and bottom. Then I'll connect them together again. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one more time. Now, if you want to make more candy hearts, you totally can. You don't have to just use the same ones that I'm doing. Maybe you want to draw smaller ones or just little different things. Feel free to add those right now or later. All right, now inside, I got to add some details. I'm going to draw, or write, I should say, some sayings you'd see on candy hearts. I'm going to use the ones that I have right here, but if you want to, you can look up, or maybe you have real candy hearts next to you, and you can write the sayings that are on those. Or you can just write people's names, maybe people that you love and think about at Valentine's Day, or things that you love, like your favorite sport or food. So let's have some fun with that now. My first one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write Be Mine. I feel like that's a classic heart, candy heart to use. So I'm going to do caps. I'm going to do B at the top, B-E, again using our pencils, and mine, M-I-N-E. So I got to be careful with my spacing, M-I-N-E. Now again, if it doesn't quite fit, that's okay. You can always erase it and try one more time. All right, my next one I'm going to do Hug Me. I really like that one too. So hug will go at the top, H-U-G. So I know my U needs to be in the middle, H on the left and G on the right. Hug and me, M-E. I'm doing all caps because that's how candy hearts are written, but if you want to do lowercase, you totally can. On my bottom ones, I'm going to do XOXO. That means hug, kiss, hug, kiss. Classic Valentine's Day heart. XOXO. And my last one, this one you can have fun with. Maybe you want to write your name or a friend. I'm going to write Mom because I love my mom. M-O-M. All right. Well, that's it for our drawing for these today. Go ahead, grab your Sharpie, and trace everything you just drew. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but if you go to paint it, Sharpie helps to see your lines through. I'm going to have you guys pause your video now, go ahead and trace everything, and press play when you're ready. All right, we're going to leave these for a second and actually bring back our big heart. We're going to start here with our first painting step. So grab your paint and everything you need to get ready because we're going to begin. I'm going to grab all of my acrylic paint here, and I'm going to have my bucket of water close by. So I'm just going to leave it off to the side. And now I have all my brushes to begin to paint. Now we're going to do a really fun technique so it can look like a gradient. And a gradient is just when you have one color, or excuse me, more than one color kind of fading into each other. All right, so we're going to start from top to bottom. And this time, instead of just putting some paint on and painting it, we're going to put blobs of paint. So I want you to watch first and then you can repeat after me. Now, if you're not painting today, you're going to be using something like chalk pastels, and it should actually look like this. You're going to be doing the exact same technique as me today, but just with chalk instead of paint. So you're going to start from the top, adding your colors. I did a pink, yellow, and blue. Then I took white chalk and I went over everything and then blended it all with my 2 fingers. Very important. It's the exact same thing we're going to do right now with our paint. If you're not using paint or chalk and you're using markers, color pencils, or crayons, you can do the exact same thing. It's just gonna take a lot longer. So what I recommend is if you're using other materials, go ahead and begin. Again, a gradient is from one color to the next. You can even do something different, but we're gonna just go right over the whole heart, filling up that paper. Then come back and watch how we're going to add the color to the heart itself. All right, let's begin. We're gonna start with red or a pink or whatever color you'd like. We're gonna add dots at the top. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, and 3. We don't want too much. Notice my dots aren't too big because we need to add more of the white. So once you're done with the dots, take your white and add some more next to it, right in between. Now, I do recommend, even if you're using pink or a light color, add white. White's gonna lighten it to be more of a pastel, so that way it doesn't look too dark and reminds us more of Valentine's Day. Now I'm gonna work my way down my rainbow, so I'm gonna skip to yellow. I wanna leave a little bit of space in between and go right about the middle, and I'm gonna add more dots of yellow and more dots of white. I'm not gonna add as much white this time because my yellow is already pretty light. And you might have guessed the last thing is blue. I have a medium blue. You can even use light blue or a dark blue, but remember, you still wanna put white no matter what. All right, my last little bit of white. 1, 2, a third one on the side. Now keep these colors close by. You may not need them again till just a little bit later, but if you start to paint and you notice your color's too dark, you can always add more white to it. So again, keep those nearby. All right, now this is the fun part. We need our largest brush you can find. If it's bigger than mine, awesome. And keep that water really close by and handy. We're gonna have to clean our brush every once in a while as we start to work our way down. If you have more than one brush, that would actually be really helpful. So I actually have 2 large brushes here, so that way as I paint, if I get a color kind of mixed up, I can grab my second brush. All right, let's start. We're gonna take our largest brush and starting from top to bottom, we don't wanna just mix it together, we're gonna paint side to side. So let's start. I'm gonna take that white and red and we're gonna start mixing it together. Notice how it's turning more of a pink, and we're just gonna keep going side to side. I have a lot of paint on my brush, so I'm actually gonna wipe it off and keep going. Now, I think I want this pink to be lighter, so I'm actually gonna grab more white, and I'm gonna add 2 more dots of paint. You don't have to do this if yours is good to go. Mine was a little too dark. Red's a dark color. And now it's gonna lighten up much more, and I'm just gonna keep mixing that together side to side. Notice I'm not going up and down. I want that to stay side to side. All right, I'm gonna keep that color getting close to my yellow, but don't touch it just yet. All right. Again, get all those white spots because we're not gonna come back. I'm actually gonna grab my second brush, or go ahead and clean yours off. Maybe even grab the medium one. We're gonna do the same thing again with our yellow. So we're gonna go side to side. I think I'm gonna add some more white. I don't want it to be too bright. I'm gonna add 2 more blobs of white. Looks like eyes. And we're gonna mix those together side to side, almost touching the red. Whoop, I'm gonna get a little close to my blue. Wipe off some of my color. Now, as we start to move up towards the top, we're gonna paint this right onto the red. So hold your paper tight. And we want those to mix together. Notice it's turning to an orange. So here's our rainbow color. Now, if you're using something different, it still will work. So still have it come up. If you're using a different material, just color on top of each other. Look at that nice, beautiful transition from pinkish red to orange to yellow. Now I don't want to over mix, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. I'm going to clean my brush off because it has all that pink. I recommend taking a towel first, wiping off the paint so it's not too much, and then wiping it in the water. Otherwise, if you just take that color, it'll get all gooey and goopy in your cup that you might be using. All right, I'm going to really clean that off, swirling it softly so I don't splash water on my paper. And then really wipe it off as well. You don't want any color or any water left. All right. Now I'm gonna dry that really good, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing again at the bottom with my blue. So I'm gonna go side to side, mixing that together first. If you need more white, you might maybe add a little bit more. It's not too bad. I might add just a tiny bit more white. You might be noticing there's a lot of paint. That's okay, it'll happen. We're just gonna have to let this dry. And let's add my white. And same thing, once it's mixed together and you've added it everywhere, I'm gonna hold up here now, we're gonna blend it right into our yellow. Now, blue's dark, so it's kind of covering my yellow. So if you have maybe the same brush again, I'm gonna take this yellow and paint it right on top of my blue. And now we have some green. So sometimes the paint dries, that's okay. Just kind of go back and you can add a little more on top. Okay, now you guys, this is looking awesome. It's hard to see on my picture, but I can see my heart. What I'm gonna do now is I gotta clean these. So please go ahead and finish yours up. Grab some more towels if you have them and wipe that paint off of there. And I'm gonna let them sit in my water so they're gonna kind of soak. So that way they're easier to clean. My hands are kind of messy, so I'm gonna make sure I wipe those off. I got some towels here. And I got a nice big blob right in the middle. I'm gonna go clean that. As I'm working on that, you guys, what I want you to do is let this dry a little bit. So this is going to need just a few minutes to dry. It doesn't have to be fully dry either. It can be a little bit wet as we go to do our next step. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna use these paints and we are going to be adding the shading onto our heart. And if you're doing chalk pastels or markers or crayons, you can do the exact same thing. So we're gonna be adding the darker version, so red into orange, green, and blue. I added some purple for some shading. We're gonna add that mostly on the left, a little bit on the right, and then we're gonna kind of blend it together. So you can do exactly the same thing as me with chalk. It works just the same. If you're using markers or crayons or color pencils, it's gonna be a little different. You're just gonna have to add a little more layers or just be careful with your coloring. So try your best. Key thing is to have fun today. All right, like I said, it's a little hard to see my Sharpie through because of the paint, but I can see it. So what I'm gonna do for you guys is with my small brush, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of find that heart shape again. Now you don't need to do this. This is just so you can see on my paper. So it's starting to show up a little bit more. Again, it's okay if you can't quite see yours, but we're gonna be painting on top. If you need to do this, maybe you can't see yours at all, you can go ahead and do the same thing. I'm just almost kind of repainting mine. There we go. All right, so I can see my heart again. Again, if you need to go do that, please do. I'm gonna wipe my hands off. And if you need to clean your table first, go right ahead. You can totally do that now before I move on. So my paper is gonna be kind of stuck to it here, and I can go ahead and clean this off real fast as you guys are working. So it's okay if it dries, you know, we kind of want it to dry a little bit. And I'm just gonna pick up some of my paint. Wet towels work really good. If it starts to dry, you can just soak it a little bit with some water and then it should scrub right off with a paper towel. So wet acrylic is much easier to clean than dry acrylic. And get a little bit more. Now, if you're wondering about how you're going to create the shading with a rainbow effect, it's actually pretty easy. You just need to make darker versions of that color. So instead of pink, it's gonna be red. Instead of yellow, it's gonna be an orange. Instead of blue or green, it's gonna just be a little bit darker blue and green. All right, I'm gonna lay that there. Now it's wet, so I'm gonna be super careful with my hands. If you wanna wait till it's dry, go right ahead. Please pause, let it dry. It might take a little bit longer, and that's okay. All right, let's grab a plate because I'm gonna do some mixing here. I'm gonna move my water and get my colors back out because I'm gonna need these again. All right, we're gonna begin with this red color. So I'm gonna take my red here and I'm just gonna put a little on there. And I'm gonna do the same thing with my yellow and my blue. Just add a little bit of each onto my plate. You can always add more. and a lot of white. Now I need to make each one a little darker. So what I'm going to do is, like before, I took some red and I mixed it with some white. So we're going to do that again, actually. So let's go ahead, take a little bit of red and white, or grab whatever color you did use. But instead of making it a super light pink, I want to make it a little bit darker. To do that, you just add more red. So if you want it to be darker, you add more of the color and less white. Now, once I get that color, I'm going to take it, notice it's a little darker, and I'm going to paint the part of the heart on the left side only, just like that. Notice it's much darker. Then I'm going to take it and add a little bit here to the right, and stop when I get to the orange. So just at the top. Good job. Now I'm going to make it a tiny bit darker, adding a little more red or whatever color you might be using. And we're going to make the left side the darkest side. Now we're going to need to mix some of this together. Now this is where it can get a little tricky. What I'm going to suggest today is, if you're having trouble already and it's a little hard, just outline your heart. It's going to look super cool no matter what. But if you're a little more advanced or you've used acrylics a lot, try this out. So that way you guys can kind of get used to what acrylics can do. So whatever you want to do is totally up to you. I'm going to start to add some of this darker color only on the left, just at the top. And my paint is still wet, so what I can do is, as I start to paint it, it starts to mix with the color underneath. So I'm actually going to wipe some of it off and kind of let it blend with that color underneath. Not going too far down. Maybe just do a little bit of that on the other side as well. It's okay if it doesn't quite mix perfectly, because we can kind of have it stick out to be a little more noticeable. Now, for those of you who are doing chalk, exactly the same thing. You're going to take those different colors, so you can use red, orange, green, blue, go all the way around, and then take your fingers and blend on just that left side, maybe a little bit on the right. So you can do exactly the same thing if you're doing markers or crayons. Same thing, just trace with that darker version of your color all the way around, and then go back and maybe add a little bit more. Let's move on to our next colors. I need some orange. What I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to take yellow and white and just add it to the color I already used, or you can go ahead and make up your own. That's going to be up to you guys, whatever works the easiest. So it's almost going to be like a peach color. We want it to be kind of dark, so if you need to add more red, you can. Mine's pretty good, so I'm going to put it right next to it, kind of coming down, maybe even add a little more yellow. I need it to be a little bit more yellow. Try not to go too far into that green. I'll add a little bit on this side. And then I want to start to blend it into the left. So again, just right next to it. Can kind of push up into the next color. Try your best. Press very soft. You don't need to press too hard. And you're just going to kind of blend it into that background color like so. Again, it's okay if it doesn't quite blend. That's all right. And don't do any on the other side. We're going to just leave that as is. Perfect. All right. Now I need to clean this brush off. I'm going to start to use blues and greens. Blues and greens and yellows and reds don't mix so well. So I'm going to clean my brush in my water. I'll let those brushes are still soaking. That's okay. If you want to go ahead and wash them, you can. And I need to dry this really good with my towel. So I'm going to pinch and pull. Now, I'm already starting to get a little messy, but I'm a messy painter, so try your best to stay clean if you can. Now, I'm going to start to need green and blue, so I still need to mix mine with white. So I'm going to do some blue here and a little bit of white, but I want more blue this time, so that way it's a little bit darker. And I'm going to start working backwards. I'm going to begin with blue, maybe a little bit darker. And I'm going to use my blue, and I'm going to trace. Ooh, I think it needs to be much, much darker. Maybe I'll just use my blue straight from the tube and and start to outline up into that green even a little bit. That's all right. And same thing on the other side. Much darker, looks really nice. Same thing again, you can start to now blend the color. Just on the left though, you don't want to go too far on the right. I'm not going to go all the way up to my yellow just yet. Get some of that off of there. And just keep blending until you like it. Now right away, as I'm doing this, I don't want it to dry, so I'm going to take some yellow, just mix it. Look at that, I made green. And I want it to be kind of dark, so we want more blue than yellow. So if you added too much, just put a little more blue in there. And we're going to add the green. It's going to be more of like a teal. And just kind of let it mix and then start to blend it up. And you can even have it touch this yellowish part. Now, it's not quite blending as well as you maybe would want, and I'll show you a trick here in just a second. But I need to take my green as well, and I'm going to add some to the other side for outlining. Now, to kind of fix that where it's not blending together, clean your brush off. I'm just going to wipe it on here. It doesn't have to be fully clean. And I'm going to take some yellow on my brush, maybe a little bit of white mixed into it. Again, it's okay if it looks a little more green than yellow, and you're just going to kind of go back, blend on top. You'll wipe some of it off. And you're just going to keep mixing it until it starts to blend. If it starts to turn a weird color, it's okay. Just go ahead and stop and just leave it as is. There we go. It's looking pretty good. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. It's still going to look like the colors mixing together. All right, I think this is looking really good so far. I really like mine, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave it just like that and not add any more shading. But if you still need to add some more, go ahead. I can clean my hands off a little bit while I'm waiting. All right, this is looking really nice. Notice we haven't done anything to the right side. That is gonna be for a special reason because we want it to stay lighter on this side. So I need to clean my small brush off. If you want to switch to a medium, you could do that too, depending on the size of your heart, but I always like using my small brush. So I'm going to take this smaller, I cleaned it off nice and good, and I'm going to take just white. Get some white on there. Now on the other side, we're going to create a highlight. So notice I even have it on my chalk pastel. Take white chalk, a white crayon, white color pencil, maybe an eraser even if you can erase the chalk away, or color pencil, and right along the bottom on the right, not the whole thing, we're gonna put white. Don't do it on the edges where we put the color before, just right inside from top to bottom. Now this isn't gonna stay pure white because it's gonna mix with the color underneath. That's okay. At the end, we're gonna go back and we'll add some more. We want it to kind of blend together. I'm not going all the way up. Notice how I keep going back and getting some more white. Now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to blend it with the color. If your colors are mixing, it's okay. You can just go ahead and stop and just do as much as you need to. Just keep cleaning your brush. This is a new way, new technique we haven't done so much of before. I'm going to leave it because I kind of like it how it is. And I'm going to go up to the top. Now this, you can add it if you like. It's right underneath here on the left side. I'm just going to add a tiny bit here. Just kind of blend it out. It's just going to get a little lighter. Again, I'm not touching that outline. I'm going to leave it as it is. Just add a little more white. There we go. It just gets a little bit lighter. Almost like if it's a bubble. And we're going to let this dry. We're going to come back and add more white later once it's dry a little bit more. Other things you can do while you're waiting, even with chalk pastels, is you can go to this left side here. Take the pure color. So I clean my brush off. I'm going to take pure red, and I'm just going to outline again. But now it's much, much darker. Only do this on the left, not the right. Then I'm going to take some yellow, make it more of an orange here. Add a little more there. I'm going to do that all the way down. Let them kind of mix together until I get to the blue. So again, you can just take that pure color just on the left side and just do some outlining again. All right, so if you want to keep working on this is a video, so you can pause at any time. Hopefully you've been doing that as you needed to throughout the class. And then I'm going to take some yellow for my green. Okay. Because now we're going to move on to our creativity, what we drew prior. So I'm going to move this out of the way. I'm going to keep this paint here because I might need it. Carefully pick this up, or maybe just move to a different area. Got a little water on there. And I want you to grab your second paper that we drew on that has that creativity. So did you draw hearts? Did you draw flowers? Whatever you did, we're going to use this paint, or maybe in another plate, and we're going to paint them now. You can do them any colors you want. I'm going to keep mine that nice kind of tan, or excuse me, lighter color. I'm going to use my medium brush because my hearts aren't too big, they're not too small. Excuse me. So I'm going to use some of this paint I have so I don't waste paint. And I'm going to begin with the Be Mine. I want it to be blue. So I'm going to take my blue. I'm going to move it over here though, add a little more, and I'm going to make it lighter. So I'm going to add blue and white together. Now you want more white than blue, so I'm not going to just start mixing everything together. I'm just going to do a little blue at a time. Do whatever colors you want. Once you get the light version of your color, we're just going to paint right over the words or whatever it is for the top part. Now with Sharpie, again, you can see the words through because I can see mine. It's okay if you can't. You can always just rewrite your word or whatever you're kind of covering up. Now, once you're done painting, really make sure you smooth it out so it dries nice and even. It's okay if you get outside of it because we're also going to cut it. You're going to use your darker version. So I'm just going to use pure dark blue now, and we're going to paint the edge. Let me switch to a small brush. Remember, small brush, small details, big brush, big details or things. And we're just going to paint the edge, and it looks 3D. It looks like a real candy heart. And I'm going to do that for every single one. So if you would like to go ahead and keep on working, I'm going to paint one more here with you guys. And I'm going to make it a light yellow. I'm going to do my XO one. So I'm going to take some yellow and some white. Get more white than yellow. Mixing all that together, make it super, super light yellow. I'm going to do my XO one, and I'm going to paint right over it. Yellow is really easy to see the Sharpie through. Now you're going to make sure to paint all of yours. I'm only going to paint 2 with you today. So make sure you take your time to paint everything. Pause that video, take your time. If you have extra details, please do, but we're not quite done with our candy hearts just yet. All right, now I'm going to take my just regular yellow and I'm going to paint the side. All right, again, so if you need to, please pause and finish painting the rest. And then when you're done, come back because we're going to add our words next. I'm going to show you guys some techniques to do that as well. So if you need to paint your last 2, go ahead, pause, and then jump back when you're ready to finish up your words. All right, so hopefully you're ready for those words now. We're going to take the darker color, so I'm going to stick with my yellow here, and we're going to paint it right on. Now I'm using a small brush, and I'm just using it almost like a pencil. If that's too hard, what you can do is actually use a paint pen, if you know what that is, if you might have one, or wait till it's completely dry and take a Sharpie. It could be a colorful Sharpie or a marker, and you can just write the word back on top. For those of you who maybe are not using acrylic and wondering, well, how am I gonna do mine? Same thing. I would maybe first write the word. So if you're gonna use markers, then you can put your chalk pastel right back on top. go ahead, however that works for you guys. There we go, XOXO. Now I'm gonna do the same thing for my blue. So I'm gonna take the darker blue, and I want you to do that for all of them. So if you have green or pink or purple, just get the darker version of that color and draw, or I should say write your word right back onto the candy heart or whatever you might be making. These darks and lights that we're creating is called contrast, and it's really good to have in your art. It looks really nice. It's okay if it doesn't look perfect either. They're candy hearts. If you looked at a candy heart closely, sometimes it doesn't print very well on candy. I can imagine that being kind of hard. Now, before you cut these, they need to be dry. So don't go ahead and just begin to cut. As your paint's wet, you might smear it and get all over your hands, and you'll have to redo it. I don't want that to happen. So we're gonna need this to dry, but you can go ahead and add more details if you need to as it's drying. Something I like to add are highlights. Talked about contrast, the difference between dark and light. If you'd like to draw this, you can add it to your picture. I'm gonna take pure white, so make sure to clean that brush really good. And anywhere on that heart you'd like, add just a few lines of white. You can go over your letters even, and it makes it look like it's shining. You can do it for all of them. Yellow might be a little tricky to see. It's coming out pretty nice. Again, you don't have to add this if you don't want to. And only do it on the top, never do it in the shading area because it's supposed to be in shadow anyway. All right, you guys, these are looking good. Please go ahead and finish painting the rest of them. But when you're done, we're gonna begin to cut them out. So if you need to pause, go ahead and do so and press play when you're ready. All right, let's go ahead and do some cutting. So grab your scissors, wherever they may be, and we're gonna just start to cut them out. Again, make sure that they're dry. So since this is paint, if you accidentally got outside your heart, you can just cut that off. Good, all right, still drying. Now hopefully your big heart is almost done. If you did chalk pastels, you don't have to worry about it drying. But if you did something different, you might. I'm gonna move this out of the way and just continue to cut my nice big heart right here. All right, now once you're done cutting all your hearts, please go ahead and finish doing so. You should have a whole bunch of fun little hearts to put on your paper. All right, so I have a few more here that I've already made and cut out. So I'm gonna have all 4 of these objects to put on my paper. If you're not done, please finish before you move on. But if you are, grab your big heart back. Now mine's still kind of wet, so I just have to be super careful as I'm working with it. I recommend waiting till it's completely done so that way you don't have to worry about it. So if you need to take your time, press pause, please do so. I got a little smear there. All right, easy cover up. We can add some fun details. Now I mentioned highlights before, so we're actually gonna go back and do that real fast. So you can do this with an eraser, anything that's a white material, chalk pastel even. So I'm gonna get my white paint. And just like I showed you with the smaller hearts, we're gonna take some pure white. You can also use a paint pen, works really good for this. And on this area on the right, we're just gonna go back now that it's dry and add a little bit more. And now it's super, super white, kind of shining a little bit more, and that's what we wanna see. I'm gonna add a little bit more as well up here to the top. It's a nice highlight, nice shine. And then we're just going to add a few more lines everywhere else. So over here on this curve, I'm gonna add 2, kind of on top of each other. And then I'm gonna add one up here on the left. Make sure to kind of curve them so we know that it's following the shape of the heart. Now, as that dries, you can always go back and add some more white so it's a little bit brighter. If you're having trouble with chalk pastel, you might need to take your eraser, erase where you want the highlight first, and then to put your white chalk on top. If you're doing markers, I would do maybe an oil pastel with the white or crayon. If you're doing color pencil, same thing, erase first, and then you could maybe even take some paint if you have it or your paint pen, add a little bit on. Whiteout works really well as for any material really that you have. So that's going to be it for highlights. Looking really nice. We're going to have our nice colors going on here. So now we can start to glue everything on. Again, please make sure this is completely dry. So if yours is still super wet, wait. Just pause, take a little break, come back to it maybe a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead now that mine's ready and we're going to start. So you could take glue or whatever you have. If you only have tape, that's fine. Again, make sure it's dry. And we're gonna put our candy hearts in the corners. So that way we have enough room. And you can decide which ones you want to go where. I think I'm gonna have, excuse me, I'm gonna separate mine where my cool colors are on the top and my warm colors are on the bottom. But again, you can kind of separate it however you want. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the first one, flip it over and add our glue. And then you're just gonna place them where you have room. Now, I don't want mine to touch my big hearts, so I'm gonna just try to find a nice spot and just hold it down. And then I'm gonna continue to place them. So continuing to add your glue, flipping it over, placing it on top. Same thing with the other one. Flip them over, add your glue. I'm gonna have mine again overlapping. Something like this. I can kind of read them. Now, I definitely need to add some more. If you have some jewels or glitter glue or something, puffy paint would even work great. Grab those out. I got a whole rainbow assortment here. We can add them all over the background. If you don't have that, the other thing you can do, take the paint pen or whatever you've been using, a colorful marker. Again, please make sure it's completely dry. And you can take a brush and draw little sparkles or little circles in the background. Maybe you want to add little white dots everywhere. You could even take a color. Maybe you want to make a super light yellow. And anywhere where you don't have a yellow, you can add little dots of color. Then you can take a white and add a highlight to each sparkle. It's a little hard to see on my paper, but it will look super cool. I can show you guys on a little bit bigger paper here. So again, start with a color. So maybe you want to take like a light blue, add a sparkle. This is a zoomed in version. Just a little circle. Then you can take some white and add your highlight. And it looks like a little sparkle. So try that out, again, if you don't have jewels. But if you do, you can just take a whole bunch and you can just start to put them anywhere you want, all over the background. But I wouldn't put any in the middle of your heart. Reason why is because we want it to look like that itself is maybe just a big jewel that you painted all by yourself onto your paper. Maybe you did some sort of paint details. So again, I wouldn't put them in the heart, in the big heart, but just around the outside. If you want to add more, please feel free to do so. I'm just going to add my jewels, and I'm going to say that's enough because I want it to just be nice and pretty for everyone to see, a little more simple. But again, if you want to add some more, please do. You guys, that's the end of our project today. So please make sure to clean those brushes, throw any paint away, clean that table really good, let this dry completely, and oh my gosh, that was so much fun. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me here today for our Happy Valentine's Day here at Fibo. I had a lot of fun showing you some new techniques with paint, even some other materials like chalk. Try going back and making some cards for your friends and family. I think they would really enjoy it. Well, thank you for joining. My name is Miss Jessica with Fibo Kids Art Academy. Have a very happy Valentine's Day. Bye.